Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a wheel that will fit on top of your axle and slide into your wheel well for your car. I need to understand, or I need to remember some basic dimensions that I put on here. So how we can find some of those dimensions are, if I look over here on my browser, if I see sketch 1, I can click the three dots next to sketch 1 and show dimensions, and that'll show me the dimensions that I used on sketch 1. Okay, that's not the dimensions for the wheel cutout though, so I'm going to keep looking. Double tap in the background to let go of that. Let's look at sketch 2, show dimensions. Nope, that doesn't give me the dimensions I want. Sketch 3, show dimensions. There it is. And this shows me that the outside diameter of that circle is 1.75. Okay, but it doesn't show me the diameter of the axle, so I'm going to keep looking for the axle, but I'm going to remember 1.75. Double tap, and let's look for my next sketch, sketch 4, show dimensions. There it is, 0.25. So the hole for my axle and the hole for the inside of my tire needs to be 1/4 of an inch, or 0.25 inches. So let's create a new part. Create Part Studio. And I'm going to tap the tab and rename and give this a name. I'll just call it wheel. There we go. I'm going to choose the right side because I want this wheel to slide on to the axle from the side. Click my pencil tool and let's create some center point circles. 2-finger tap, view normal to sketch plane. And we'll start laying out some circles. So the first circle dimension is going to be the inside of that circle, which we said is 0.25. All right, and then do another circle, center point circle on the origin. This one is going to be the outside, which we said the wheel well is 1.75. So I want this to be a little bit smaller than that. So I'm going to make this 1.65. There we go. And then I'm going to create the thickness of my tire. So I got to figure out the black, like the rubber part of my tire. So let's create another center point circle, and we'll tap out there somewhere. Dimension that. Remember, when you put a dimension on it, it goes from being a blue line to a black line. That way you know it's locked in. So this is 1.38. I'm going to make this 1.4. There we go. So the outside of that is going to be the black tire part, and then the inside is going to be the metal rim part. Okay, so let's finish this sketch and we'll start extruding. So I'm going to do 3D tool, extrude. I'm going to click the outside first, and we're going to extrude that. I'm going to go in the other direction so it goes away from me. And I'm going to choose this to be a new result, or a new part. And I want that to be, I'll just change this to 0.75. You do have control over how far that does get extruded, and I'll be done with that extrusion. So I've lost, my sketch has gone away, but it's still over here. So I can turn the eyeball back on and do another extrusion. This time I'm going to click the inside of that. I'm going to go in the opposite direction. I want this to also be a new part extrusion, and I want that to be 0.75 as well. So it's the same thickness. There we go. So there's the basic tire, and you could just leave it like this if you want it to be basic. I'm going to show you how to fancy it up a little bit. So I'm going to click on the top of that plane and do a sketch right there. 2-finger tap, view normal. Remember, the 2-finger tap gives you that secondary menu. All right, now I'm going to take a line tool and I'm going to create one cutout that I'm going to revolve all the way around in a circular pattern around my tire. So I'm going to create a line that kind of comes up there. And I'm going to create, we'll try it this way. I'll do a center point arc. And I'm going to click on the center. And then I'm going to click on the outside of this. And then I'm going to just rotate that around to the other side. Okay. And then let's do another center point arc. So my tool is still selected. I see it up there. I'm going to click on the center. I'm going to come up in here a little bit. And I'm going to rotate that around. And I don't know where I just want to rotate around. I'll trim it off later. Okay, let's take our line tool again. And we'll go up and connect it to that. And then let's give some of these dimensions. All right, so let's see what happens when I go to dimension. Click on that radius. That is 0.618. I'm going to round this off to 0.6. Okay, and then I'll put a dimension on this one. That's 0.209. I'm going to round that off to 0.2. So I try to draw it roughly the size or the shape that I want it to be, and then I kind of round it off to easier numbers. Okay. So now let's go into our tools, and I'm going to use these scissors, which is our trim tool. Whoops. And I'm going to trim away, oh, I lost it. I'm going to trim away this little edge. I'm going to double tap in the background. That drops everything when I double tap, so I got to select it again. I'll click that, and I'll click that little line right there. Okay, so there's that. And let's see what happens if I can dimension between these two lines. It gives me, okay, that gives me, see if I can change this. I'm going to change it to 45 degrees. Perfect. There we go. You can make whatever, depending on what the size of that cutout is that you want. Okay, so that's that. Let's see if we can put some little curved edges on the inside of that. So let's see if I can create my little sketch fillet there. The current fillet radius produces invalid geometry. Okay, so we might not be able to do this from the sketch command. All right, so I'm gonna have to wait till I actually cut this thing out. So let's cut this part out and then see if we can put those fillets in the 3D version of this. So I'm gonna go up here to extrude. I don't want to add. Let's turn it sideways so we can see what's happening here. I'm going to create a remove, and I want this to not just go down an inch. I want it to go through all. So it goes all the way through, and hit the check. So there's my cutout right there. So now let's see if we can put those curved edges in there. So if I go to my 3D fillet, pick that line right there. Okay, so that's a really big radius. I'm going to change that to something much smaller, 0.05, see what that does. That's perfect. I can mess around with that number if I wanted to make it 0.03. I can change it a little bit more. I'll leave it there. But I want to select all of these guys. So click that, click that, click that. There we go. I got my 4 fillets selected, and I'm going to hit the check. All right, so there's the basic shape of the cutout. Now I'm going to actually revolve this around, and it's called a circular pattern. So when I come up here to my 3D tools, you can see a linear pattern right there, and then right next to it is circular pattern. So let me click on circular pattern. All right, so over here on the right, it says part pattern. So pattern type, I want to be a feature pattern because I want that feature, that extrusion, to be what gets patterned. Then it wants me to select what features do you want to pattern, and I will click on extrude 3 because that was the extrusion that I made, but I'm also going to click on the fillet 1 underneath there. So you'll see the orange kind of border going all the way around. That's the part. So both the extrusion and the fillets are going to get patterned. Okay. And then it says the axis of the pattern. So this is going to be the circle that it gets kind of rotated around. So I'm going to turn this slightly. Whoops. Accidentally select the whole sketch. I don't want that. I just want extrude 3 and fillet 1 to be what gets patterned. And then I want to turn this a little bit. There we go. So the axis of pattern is going to be this circle right there. And you can see how those things kind of rotate around. I'm going to zoom to fit so I can see everything. All right, that's how you do it. I can then play around with the number, so I can say, okay, I want this to be 7, and you'll get 7 of them that go around there, and you can mess around with it to get kind of the shape of the cutout that you actually want it to be. You can do centered. That doesn't do anything. Equal spacing is what you want to have picked. So I'm going to leave it at 7. You can kind of choose whatever you want, and I'm going to click done. All right, so the last thing, you could be done at this point, but the last little thing that I'm going to show you is a way to do kind of a cool cutout on the inside to create a bevel shape. So I'm going to choose one of my side work planes. Okay, so I'm cutting it in half right there. And I'm going to do a sketch on that plane. So 2-finger tap, view normal. All right, so I can kind of picture the inside of this tire, and I'm going to create an area that I'm going to cut out. So a cross section of that area. So I'm going to use my line tool, starting in the center here, and I'm going to come down, I don't know, I'll come down a little bit, and then I'll kind of come over a little bit. Actually, you know what, I'm going to just do an arc. I think that'll look pretty cool too. So let's use this 3-point arc. I'll start with 1 point there, and 1 point kind of out near the edge. You don't want to go into where the black part of the tire is, because you just want it to cut out of. And then the third tap, so I tapped one there, and then the third thing is kind of setting your angle. So I'm just going to create a little arc just like that. Then I'm going to go back to my line tool and finish the shape. So there we go. So I've got kind of that closed off shape right there. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to do what's called a revolve. So if I kind of turn this slightly so we can see it, whoops, I need to undo that line. If I turn it slightly so we can see it, I'm going to hit my extrude, or my 3D, and instead of doing extrude what we've been doing, I'm going to do a revolve. So that revolve is going to be a remove, and it's going to cut it out in that circular shape. So the face is already selected, and the axis, if I move this guy over, the axis is going to be that circle right there. Hit the check, and now we've got that kind of cool, kind of concave cutout of your tire. All right, the last thing that we need to do is just kind of change some surfaces. So I'm going to go over here to part 1. That is the actual rubber part of my tire. Go to appearance, let's change that to black. There we go. And if I wanted to, I can go into my part 2 and I can make that a little bit lighter if I wanted to. And there is your tire. One little detail that I did put on mine was a fillet along the outside edge, and I made that, kind of played around with kind of the curvature of that to make it look a little bit softer and rounded over. And there's my tire. So you can see a little bit better. I will take off those planes so we can just focus in on the actual tire. I'm going to take off sketch 1 as well. And there's my wheel, my custom wheel. Okay, that can be inserted onto your axle, and it's all ready to go.